Meniti bisnis energi untuk mengelola dan mengembangkan ke berbagai penjuru telah kami lalui. Kini, saatnya kami memberikan layanan yang unggul dan mendunia. Sebagai Center of Excellence, kami akan memberikan usaha yang terbaik dan inovatif untuk menciptakan masa depan yang lebih baik dengan efektif, efisien, mengacu standar internasional yang aman, selamat, handal, dan menguntungkan bagi klien. Lebih dari 4 dekade beroperasi, Badak LNG dikenal sebagai perusahaan kelas dunia yang berpengalaman dan memiliki budaya keselamatan yang baik. Sebagai perusahaan minyak dan gas yang berasal dari seluruh belahan dunia, telah memperoleh layanan dari Badak LNG. Melalui dedikasi dan komitmen yang tinggi untuk memberikan layanan terbaik, Badak LNG siap maju bersama Anda, bergandeng tangan, menghadapi segala tantangan di masa depan karena Badak LNG, Center of Excellence.
Hello, my name is Rizka Devianti Christine Alaga.
I am Meli Chandra.
I am Rizky Gunawan.
Hi, I am Cliff Hosea Suryaputra.
In this video, we will explain about scenario planning for PT Badak LNG. First of all, what is scenario planning? Scenario planning is the process that stimulates imaginative, creative thinking to better prepare an organization for the future. There are 5 steps in scenario planning. First is orientation. Explain about background research to determine the key focal issue. Second is exploration to identify the driving forces and the critical uncertainty influenced by the key focal issue. Third is scenario and narrative creation. That is, explain about scenario metrics and narrative for each scenario. Next is option consideration. In here, discuss about the implication and corresponding option for each scenario. And the last one is integration, to develop the early warning signal. PT Badak LNG is one of the largest liquefied natural gas processing companies in Indonesia. As we know, gas production has decreased, resulting in the Badak LNG plant only running 2 trains. In addition to facing the decline in LNG shipments, Indonesia is also experiencing a decline in domestic demand due to the fight against COVID-19. This brings a greater risk to LNG prospect. This condition threatens to close 1 more train next year. This emergency condition must be handled comprehensively, especially coupled with the very low gas price. Therefore, it is necessary to find other alternatives in utilizing the Badak LNG plant so that it can be used not only for gas liquefaction operations but for other commercial activities. With sustainable upstream and downstream operation and dynamic asset management, it is expected to be able to increase the rate of economic growth both in Badak LNG plant area and nationally.
Well, we are going to step 2 for exploring the identification of the driving force and critical uncertainties that influence the key focal issue of PT Badak LNG business. So now, let's move on to identify the categories of driving forces, which are defined in 3 categories. They are contextual, transactional, and organizational. The driving forces in contextual categories include gas supply, pandemic disease, upstream facility major problems, business development disturbance, social and low impact. In the transactional category, we identify LNG price and cost per Mmbtu. The last is the organizational. The driving forces identified are the game plan, liquid and financial capability, and overmining. And From contextual to organizational, we identify sequentially from point 1 to point 10. After we identify the categories of this driving force, then we identify and map its driving force based on its uncertainty and impact using a matrix. So, we want to illustrate the driving force by showing you this chart. We can see point 1, gas supply, and point 7, cost per Mmbtu are the most uncertain and impactful driving force. It means in the case of PT Badak LNG business have two drivers for cause a large impact with a high uncertainty. Why? Because the producer gas they may follow the law of supply and demand, including oil and gas price, and the cost per Mmbtu is determined by the performance of the refinery in the operational expenditure required for this Mmbtu of LNG. Company have prepared scenario for two driving forces to continue business in the future.
Okay, I will continue to the stage 3, the scenario creation, that consists of scenario elements and scenario narratives. In this section, we will describe all the elements in every scenario planning based on the driving forces that already told before. There are two constant driving forces based on its uncertainty and its impacts. There are gas supply quantity, and the second is cost per Mmbtu in the processing gas into LNG. Then we created two axes. The first is x-axis. It's for the cost per Mmbtu in processing gas into LNG. There is for low cost until high cost. The second is y-axis. It is for the gas supply quantity. There is low gas supply quantity until high gas supply quantity into Badak LNG plant liquefaction. Then we could see there, based on the figure, we have 4 scenario planning. The first scenario planning condition is when the gas supply quantity into Badak LNG liquefaction plant is high and then the cost per Mmbtu is low. The scenario elements are: it has high competitiveness LNG product in the market due to the low cost per Mmbtu, so Badak LNG should leading the global LNG market. Another element is the capacity expansion. In the condition of increasing gas supply from gas producers, PT Badak could reactivate the idle train to optimize the maximum production capacity, so PT Badak should meet the market demand and optimize its profitability. The second scenario planning condition, when the gas supply quantity is low and the cost per Mmbtu also in the low level. In this scenario, PT Badak should decrease their production capacity, and it has an impact. The number of idle train will be increased. Even PT Badak has high competitiveness in the market, they should find the new gas producers to increase their production. Another alternatives, they should develop their operation and maintenance services business in order to increase their revenue to cover their losses due to decreasing production. After that, the third scenario planning condition, when the gas supply quantity is high, but in other side it has high cost per Mmbtu. The impact is low competitiveness product in the market, so they should halt or reduce the production. In this condition, the most suitable elements is development of LNG processing technology in order to push the cost per Mmbtu of LNG liquefaction processes. The last scenario planning condition, when the gas supply quantity is low and it also has high production costs. In this condition, the production will decline due to the limitation of gas supply quantity. And in this point, PT Badak also should consider to transform their organization and business model from operating LNG plant liquefaction into services company. They should develop and focus on their operation and maintenance services business. Another business model also should consider to be developed, such as LNG or LPG hub, LNG regasification, LNG cold storage, etc. From the scenario element that we already developed, we try to create the scenario narratives of each condition. The first condition, the high competitiveness in the market, will triggering PT Badak to reactivate the idle trend in order to increase the production. In this area has high profitability for the existing business, so the company should focus in developing processing technology to consistently have low cost per Mmbtu of LNG processes. The second condition, the declining of gas supply, will drive company to shut down the trend in order to adjust the production capacity. The company should focus their operation and maintenance services business to optimize the manpower and assets utilization. Experience and ability of manpower that utilized in a service business should increase the company revenue and also solve the overmanning issue. The existing idle asset should be used for another business line such as LNG and LPG hub, training media, etc. Then, the third condition, the high cost per Mmbtu of LNG will impact to halt or reduce the production because the low competitiveness in the market. Train will be shut down to halt the production of LNG and also to implement the new processing technology in order to lower the cost. Addition of business line as the services company should be developed to increase the revenue. The last condition, the declining of gas supply push the company to transform their business. High cost of production due to aging plant also drive the company to transform their business from LNG plant operator into services company. Excellent experience in operating the plant with the capital in developing the new business model. Here, the scenario of business roadmap should be considered to develop. In 2023, with the existing business are LNG and LPG production, training services, operation and maintenance services, operation and maintenance LPG hub, and commissioning startup assistance services. There are two potential new business should be developed, such as LNG cold storage and the LNG for power plant like mini LNG plant, transporter, isotank terminal, regasification, and also the isotank manufacturer. Then in 2024, the new potential business should be considered to develop is the EPC, LNG hub, and regasification. After that, in the 2025, to optimize the idle assets, there is potential business such as hydrogen generation plant to be developed to gain more revenue and assets utilization. And the last 5 years forward, in the 2026, if there is possibility of gas supply shortage, PT Badak is ready when there are no more LNG or LPG production. They will transform their business into services company, and they have several services business model that they already prepared in the last 5 years before.
So, after we explore the driving forces behind the key focal issues and create scenarios and narratives, we develop some options to be considered based on the previous steps. In developing options consideration, we have to identify the implications of the scenarios that were discussed in the previous part. As has been discussed earlier, there are 4 quadrants with gas supply and cost per Mmbtu as the main driving forces. In quadrant 1, where high gas supply meets low cost per Mmbtu, the implications will be high demand of LNG, high profitability, and increase in market share. In this condition, the suggested option is to increase the LNG production. In quadrant 2, where high gas supply meets high cost per MMBTU, the implications will be decrease in production, low profitability, and low competitiveness. Several options that can be considered in these conditions are improvement in processing technology and entering a new business as an LNG services company. The next quadrant is where a low gas supply meets a low cost per MMBTU. The implication of this situation are decrease in production, non-optimal manpower and asset utilization, and raw material shortage. To tackle this condition, business model transformation and idle asset utilizations could be considered. And for the final quadrant is where a low gas supply meets high cost per MMBTU. In this condition, decreased production, low competitiveness, and non-optimal manpower and asset utilization will be faced. By transforming the business model and idle asset utilization, we could overcome the situation. The final step of the scenario planning is the integration or the early warning signs. In this part, we will identify the signals that indicate the scenario that will happen in the future and use the scenarios as part of management processes. For quadrant 1, where high gas supply meets low cost per MMBTU, signals like war or extreme weather could indicate a high LNG price is on the horizon. Another signal is when improvement has been made in processing technology, as well as new reserve, a discovery from a gas supplier could be seen as a signal. And the next quadrant is where high gas supply meets high cost per MMBTU could be indicated by high LNG price, aging plant, and decreasing plant reliability. The next quadrant, where low gas supply meets low cost per MMBTU, we could wait for signals like LNG processing technology improvement, whereas no new gas discovery from gas supplier could be viewed as a signal as well. However, the higher adaptation of renewable energy could be seen as a strong signal for low LNG prices. The final quadrant, where low gas supply meets high cost per MMBTU, indicated by low LNG price, which is caused by pandemic or oversupply, and then an aging plant and decreasing plant reliability. With the conclusion of the fifth or the final step, which is the early warning signs, we have completed our scenario planning for PT Badak LNG. Therefore, we are from Syndicate 6 would like to say thank you for your attention for our video. We hope this is beneficial for you and see you in another video.